we're not meeting in person, the meeting will be conducted with the same level of formality as an in-person meeting. As a reminder, the public is welcome to participate during the public comments section of the agenda only. Listen to the instructions. Business conducted during the remainder of the meeting may include questions and comments by the commissioners, city staff, consultants, and scheduled presenters only. This meeting is being recorded. Please be respectful. Attendees exhibiting inappropriate conduct will be removed from the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation as we continue to efficiently conduct the business of the city. Do I have an invocation?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Father, we thank you for a great day to serve you. Thank you for your son, Jesus, and all he's done in the sacrifice for us. Thank you that we live in this great nation to serve you, and for the privilege of starting this meeting. I pray your blessing, your wisdom, your continued direction and favor on our community and all the things that we do to bring you glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I have a motion from Christy. I have a second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. The use of video conference technology can be challenging when inviting public comment. To help us proceed in an organized fashion, we request that you use the chat feature to indicate you would like to speak. Please type your name, address, and the topic you would like to discuss. If your name is different than how you are shown on Zoom, please also include your identifier so we can unmute the correct microphone. We will acknowledge speakers in the order they are received. When you are acknowledged for your turn to speak, we request that you introduce yourself by stating your name and address. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments? Okay. Next item, Emergency Medical Services Week Proclamation. Anybody want to just talk about that before we read the proclamation?
I can a little bit. It's EMS week, and it's one of those big things for fire and EMS services, but just a little bit of information about the department and what we're doing. 2018, the fire and EMS, Concordia Fire and EMS ran 950 calls. During that time, we was able to provide 95% of the time ALS support, and we started in-house training up to the AEMT level. A little bit of history, 10 years before that, in 2008, we ran 557 calls. Only 20% of the time did we have ALS, and we contracted out all training. And in 2001, we only ran 215 calls. We were all BLS, and we contracted out any training we did. So the department's improved a lot. We've increased our calls a lot. The guys here are great, the guys and gals, and doing a lot for the community, providing higher level of care to the patients in the community. So they make my job easy, and I appreciate them.
Okay. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the members of the Concordia Fire Department are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the members of the Concordia Fire Department engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical services and providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I, Mark Matthew, Mayor of Concordia, Kansas, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2020, as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the theme EMS Strong, Always in Service. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Action agenda, minutes of the May 6th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes from the May 6, 2020 meeting.
I have a motion from Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Appropriation ordinance number 9.
I would move to approve appropriation ordinance number 9.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 2019 audit presentation.
Neil Phillips is our auditor, and he is going to start sharing his screen, and then you'll be able to follow along while he presents for you.
Okay.
Good evening. Got your audit here. You should have received a copy of it also, but let's just talk about, I thought going through the screen would be the easiest. Seems to be working out fairly well with the Zoom. We prepared your independent audit for this year. Things actually went a little bit different this year with the virus thing going on. We did everything with your audit electronically, so there's a lot of scanning back and forth, scanning invoices, scanning receipts, scanning documents, a lot of information transferred back and forth, but we were able to complete your audit and have it here for you today. The first paragraph on page 1 actually is the independent auditor's report. The first paragraph talking about what we audited, being the city of Concordia as of December 31st, 2019. The second paragraph talks about management's responsibilities and the fact that everything in this document is yours. They're your numbers and your representations with what happened during the year and how you ended the year. The next couple of paragraphs talks about the auditor's responsibilities and the fact that we audit following auditing standards that are generally accepted in the United States of America. Then we also follow the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide because you do follow what they call the regulatory basis of accounting. The next couple of paragraphs talk about the basis for an adverse opinion. Your financial statements are not prepared on the GAAP basis. GAAP meaning generally accepted accounting principles. Basically, we don't put a dollar amount on our infrastructure or our capital assets. And so we show our cash as it comes in and our cash as we obligate it. And actually, the next paragraph down there on page 2 is the most important one in the entire document. Unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. So as you read through that paragraph, you're going to see that's called an unmodified opinion. And what that means to you is that the numbers that are in the audit, based on the testing we did, we feel like are a materially accurate representation of what happened during the year, how you ended the year, with no further modifications. The next couple paragraphs talk about the supplemental information and tells you that we did audit everything that's in your supplemental information. So everything that's in the bound document has had some type of audit procedure on it. We turn to statement number 1. Statement number 1 is to show users at a glance that we are in compliance with the cash basis laws of the state of Kansas. The 4th column over there, ending unencumbered cash balance, we glanced down through there. If any of those were negative, that would be a violation of Kansas statutes. As you can see, we're positive in all of them, so we were in compliance with the cash basis laws of the state of Kansas. However, I like this statement because it lists out the beginning uncovered cash, or a lot of people refer to that as your carryover or your cash reserves. You'll hear that a lot of times. Your general fund started the year out with $1.6 million. We brought in 4.4, spent 4.5, into the year with $827,000 of cash carryover for uncovered cash. Then it breaks all the funds down to things like special purpose funds. Those are monies that are brought in for a specific purpose. Special highway is one of the easiest ones to explain. Every time somebody puts gas in their car at the local gas station, some money goes to the state as a gas tax. It comes back to us, and we can't spend it for anything but streets and highways. We can't spend it for a water line break-in or any other expenditure other than streets and alleys. And so the monies that are listed through the special purpose funds all have restrictions on them. Then you get your bond and interest funds, which those are the monies you're setting aside to pay your long-term debt. Your capital project funds, those are your funds that you're setting aside to do a capital project, or you have received funds to do a capital project. And then the last section is what they call business funds. And they named them that because they want you to realize that these utilities can be treated as a business, meaning we can make a profit. State statute says we can make a profit. But what you've got to realize is that your profit can be spent for anything, but there's a statute out there that says you have to pay all the bills before you can spend that money for anything. So it is important that we do have some cash carryover too, so you don't want to spend that money down, because we've got to have money to be able to leverage, money to be able to continue on into the new year. But you are setting in good position in all of your funds. Come down here to the totals, you can see you started the year out with $3,830,000. We brought in the 9.1, spent 9.1, and actually ended the year at $3,884,000. So actually had our carryover, our reserves actually increased by a little bit when you look at everything in total. Now, some of those are restricted, some of those are utilities, and then we did see our general fund went down by a little bit. On statement one, we do add back encumbrances to get a cash balance that then reconciles to your bank accounts down below. So there's all your cash, what's made up of your composition of the cash. So your petty cash, checking accounts, investment. The next section is what they call the notes to the financial statements. Footnote number 1 is actually prescribed by the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. And it's pretty much going to be exactly the same for every Kansas city that you pick up. In Kansas, I think it's around 95% of the cities follow what they call the regulatory basis of accounting. And so footnote number 1 is prescribed because it describes what is the regulatory basis of accounting. What's the basis for presentation, pension plans, property taxes. It's just describing all the policies and accounting procedures that we have out there. So I'm going to scroll all the way on down to footnote number 2 on page 9 there. We have compliance with Kansas statutes. As you read through there, you're basically seeing a positive statement because we did not have any violations of Kansas statutes that needed to be disclosed. Footnote number 3 talks about deposits and investments. In the state of Kansas, we are limited to how we can invest our money and where we can invest our money. There's just a quick description of that there in those couple paragraphs. Down towards the bottom, though, we have what they call a concentration of credit risk, which that's the risk that if we would lose our money if a bank would fail. We talk about that there, down there towards the bottom. You can see you actually had $770,000 that was covered by FDIC insurance. So the federal government helps us with that risk that a bank would fail. But then you also had another $3.5 million there of pledged securities. So what we're saying there is that your money was fully secured at the bank. So if the bank would have failed, you would have got all your monies back. The next page actually is all the long-term debt. Lists out your mortgages per se. It's your bonds. You've got the different ones that are general obligation bonds and how they're being paid. And then you had one copier lease. And I like this schedule because it shows where we started the year out, how much we increased our long-term debt by, how much we paid it down by, and an ending balance. So you can see we started out with $6 million, 6.1, paid that down, and we're down to $4.8 million. Now the next page actually shows the payments. That shows how we're going to pay that $4.8 million. It's always laid out in 5-year increments. So you got the next 5 years and then 5 years in each of these other columns. You know, most of your city planning's done in 5-year phases. And so you've got a future tracking there of how much you're going to have to pay in each of these different loans. The next section talks about operating leases. You do rent some things during the year. You have a commitment into the future for this postage machine. The lease goes to 2020. Economic development bonds. We talked about the fact that you have some bonds that are out there. Those economic development bonds do not show up on the long-term debt schedule. They show up just as a footnote because they are not really your long-term debt, but your name is on them because they are economic development bonds. Then we get into capers. You are participating in the capers program with the state and the KP&F program. And last year, you contributed into the program on behalf of your employees, $142,000 for capers and $199,000 for the KP&F program. Then this number usually scares people, and I want to make sure everybody understands. This is, where the state of Kansas is in shortfall with the capers system. This is your share of the state's shortfall if they would ever give their program back to you. I don't feel like this would ever be a liability to the city, but we are required to disclose that amount of that shortfall in your financial statement so you know how much is out there. That would be if they gave the program back to you, they would give you cash and future payments that needed to be made to employees, and you'd be $1 million short on the capers side and $1.6 million on the capers side or KP&F side to be able to pay your employees out their full retirement as promised. But that does not show up as a liability anywhere other than just footnoted. We do talk about capital leases in footnote number A. Your capital leases or capital projects there, capital projects are specifically approved. They don't go through the normal budget process that you go through in July and August. They go through actual individual project approvals. And you are limited by state. That's why we've got an authorized amount and an expended amount. The state says that you cannot spend more than you have authorized. That's why a lot of times you'll see a construction guy come back and do a change order for $1,500 because he knows he's not going to get that last $1,500 unless he actually gets a change order approved by you. So that's your authorized is actually following state law. As you glance down through there, you can see all of them are under the authorized amount, and you had a couple of them that are still ongoing. There's 6, 7 of them there that actually did end in 2019. The next footnote talks about your notes receivable and loans receivable. You have one loan that's left out there, economic development revolving loan, and there's how much is due on it. Other long-term obligations talks about your death and disabilities, compensated absences, which includes your vacation and your sick leave. We give some dollar amounts there of accrued amounts. So your employees had earned $113,000 of vacation time, but not yet taken it at year end. We talk about other post-employment benefits. And then we continue on down towards the bottom with the early retirement that you do offer some of your employees. Then we talk about risk management. As a city, we handle risk through the purchase of insurance policies. We're just disclosing that that's how you handle your risk. You are also participating in the state pool for workers or for the workers' comp insurance. And so we disclose that fact there. And if you were self-funded in anything else, that footnote becomes a lot longer because we've got to talk about reserves that you've set aside for being self-funded. Interfund transfers is next. These are all the transfers that were made between funds, like the general fund transferred to the capital improvement project fund, $159,000. We list out the statute there that says that gave you the authorization. As you glance down through there, you're going to see you had statutory authorization to make all transfers during this last year. So everything was good. And then subsequent events, we do talk about subsequent events there. We went ahead and it's been recommended by the AICPA that we put something in here about the virus that's going around. And we talk about the at the very last sentence actually makes the most sense. The city is currently experiencing significant declines in sales tax collections, utility collections, and overall receipts. The results of operations for the full 2020 may be materially adversely affected. So we put this little blurb in there so that your bondholders know that we do have some things that might be affected by this virus going around. The next section, we'll go through, we only got a couple more pages to talk about here. This schedule is schedule number 1. It's to show users at a glance that you're in compliance with the budget laws of the state of Kansas. The very last column, I don't like the fact that negative is good, but a negative number means you were actually under budget. As you glance down through there, you can see all of your funds were actually under budget. And what that means is that we were actually under what was publicly approved. That's how you got to remember that. The public approved that you could spend $4.8 million, you spent $4.5, so we were $255,000 under what the public approved us to spend in the general fund. Then the rest of the funds here, I'm not going to go page by page, but it's all the funds and it's the detailed information. This is going to match up to your state budget forms. Like the very top line is ad valorem taxes. That's the property taxes that you levy. We put a prior year comparison in there. 2018, you collected $850,000 of ad valorem taxes or property taxes from our citizens. In 2019, we collected $836, but you had actually levied $856, leaving $20,000, $20,516. That is your citizens that did not pay their taxes last year. So the hope is that $20,000 right there will come in on this next line down called delinquent taxes, in which in 2019 you collected $12,337. That was people that didn't pay their taxes in prior years. But we go through all the funds in this same format, like I said, like your state budget form, give you a prior year comparison so you can kind of see where you were this year compared to last year and where you had budgeted. Like I said, I don't think I want to go through every single fund. We did, if you got the hard copy of the audit, there was a separate letter that was included in that audit report, or in that audit. That separate letter is a letter to those charged with governance. That letter does not go out to the public. That letter is for you. It talks about any difficulties we encountered during the audit, any problems with management. I'm kind of making light of the letter because it is boilerplate letter and boilerplate language, but it is important that you do read through that letter after you get it. It also includes the representation letter, which that's what was represented by management between the auditors and management. I always call it the reminder letter because as management read through it, they should have talked to me about anything that was applicable in there. Major related parties, problems with the IRS, problems with the Department of Labor, any of those type of issues. Again, that is a standard letter. There was no modifications because there was no communications of those such matters between the auditors and management. But we are required to give you a copy of that letter so that you can see what representations were made. Kind of a quick presentation. Is there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I really appreciate your time, Neil, and the way you present it and move through quickly, but it's effectively explained things, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Even I'm starting to figure it out, Neil. So you're doing a good job.
It's kind of the way I felt.
It's scary when we start understanding some of that stuff, you know.
That's
Right.
good.
You're right.
Okay, anything else regarding the audit presentation? Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm going to disconnect. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Neil.
Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the audit and to authorize the mayor to sign the management representation letter.
I have a motion from Christie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Board of Building Trades appointment.
Maybe say that.
Everyone, if you just hold on 1 second, we've got a problem here at the city office. People are being kicked off for some reason, so they're jumping right back on. If any of you need to, you can come to my office. Mine seems to be working.
I'm back on now. I think I'm about next. I got lost there for a second. What?
Yeah, you're
You're up.
for the building.
Okay.
trade.
All right. Board of Building Trades. Cheryl Lanu and Stephen Connor's terms are up again, and they both are willing to serve. And as you know, Steve Connor's a fairly new member, and we just appointed him 5 months ago into a position that had been vacated, so that position's term is up now. So we're actually reappointing him without him ever going to a meeting because of this COVID stuff. So, but we just used his old expression of interest and had him sign it and went from there. So we recommend you appoint him and Stephen and Cheryl to another term on the Board of Building Trades.
Okay. Thank
I would
you.
move to reappoint Cheryl Lanu and Stephen Connor to the Board of Building Trades for 3-year terms each.
I have a motion from Chuck,
Second.
second from Marcia. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Bruno.
Mark?
Yeah.
Was the audit approved?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we lost all that. I don't know if you can recall who made the motions.
I made the motion. Christie made the motion. And I don't know who seconded.
Keaton did.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. All right. Thanks, Bruno. Financial services agreement with Piper Sandler for the wastewater treatment plant phase 2.
If you recall, at the last meeting, we discussed moving forward with the wastewater treatment plant phase 2 project. And the next step in doing that, we're already under design and we're about ready to get the 60% drawings ready for review. In order to move forward and meet our timeline goals, we do need to enter into the financial services agreement, and we've selected Piper Sandler as that group to do that for us. Dustin Avey is on the line with us, and he can go into a little bit more detail about what that agreement covers and kind of walk you through briefly with the timeline. After he shares a little bit of that, we'd ask that you approve us or authorize us to sign that contract.
Okay.
So Dustin, I'll turn it over to you.
You're
That's
muted.
Muted.
Does anybody want to sing while we're waiting?
There, now you're good now.
Yes, you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Amy, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm having some technical difficulties on my end with my computer audio, so I'll be using my phone. as Amy alluded to, really from a compliance perspective, we're required to provide you an engagement letter prior to providing financial services and advice on specific transactions. So the agreement you have before you this evening outlines our scope of work related to the wastewater treatment project and the financing of that project. Obviously, a lot of that involves developing the cash flows that you've reviewed and looked at before, and then as you get the bids for the project, we'll be developing a timeline to go out and sell bonds for the project. I really may want to touch on maybe two things if we can this evening. Number one is just the timeline, and number two is maybe some market conditions, because there has been a lot of volatility in the market here the last couple of months. And when we started looking at cash flows and developing a plan of finance for this specific project, interest rates through January and February and the beginning of March were extremely good. And in fact, we were running some cash flow projections for a 20-year bond issue at somewhere between 2.25 and 2.5% over 20 years, which is really incredibly low. Obviously, with COVID happening, the market was very dislocated really through the middle of April. And in fact, there was probably 2 or 3 weeks in there where there was actually no bond market. There was no buyers for bonds. And if we would have been selling bonds, interest rates probably would have been well above 3%, which again, historically speaking, is not terrible. But in light of where we've been recently, it was certainly probably 100 basis points or 1% more than where it was prior to COVID taking place. And just to give you an example, we actually, City of Wichita was one of our clients, and we had a temporary note sale kind of right in the middle of the COVID. They only received one bid on their bond. So certainly some challenging times that we did end up getting through. I will tell you that in the last 14 days, business days, we've seen a drastic improvement in interest rates. So much so that we're really almost nearly back to where we were before COVID occurred. And so from an interest rate perspective, I would tell you that we're probably on a 20-year bond issue, very, very close to that 2.25 to 2.5% rate, which again, I'm extremely pleased with. And I think that kind of depending upon the timing of the bids, we'll want to make sure we're very proactive in making sure we're putting together a timeline that allows you to secure interest rates as soon as possible. But again, I think from a marketing perspective, I do feel, again, where we are today, very, very good that you're going to be attracting a number of bids, and those bids will result in a very good outcome for the city and the project. So again, just a little bit of a market update and color related to municipal bonds and financing. From a timeline perspective, this process will really be driven upon the bidding of the project, and we've provided kind of a tentative timeline that would authorize the financing process to start at your July meeting, and then move forward with a bond sale at the September 16th meeting. As the timeline and specific dates become better known with respect to the bidding of the project and getting the construction bid finalized, we can fine tune that timeline accordingly and adjust as necessary. But again, at this point, it's kind of a July authorization, which again is just you as the governing body must authorize the financing process to start. And then we'll go through the process of preparing all the legal documents, all the bond documents, going through the credit rating process, and then preparing ourselves for a bond sale. Again, at this point, it's September 16th, but again, we can adjust that time accordingly once we gather more information. So I'll kind of pause there and glad to answer any questions if there are any.
So you're anticipating, you said where it's headed right now, where it's at right now, but by the July meeting when we authorize, you think there's going to be much change happening?
You know, at this point, I don't. I think that it seems like the current trajectory, and again, as we've seen here in the last 8 to 12 weeks, so there's a lot of things that can happen that can change the markets very, very quickly. But you know, based upon where we are today and the current trajectory and the supply and demand of bonds, I don't see a whole lot of change. And in fact, we continue to see improvement in interest rates. And obviously, we'll keep we'll keep Amy and Amber up to speed on where those interest rates are. But the July meeting is, again, just the authorization. We won't actually take bids and lock in rates until the September meeting, tentatively. And again, that can, if through this process we have a more definitive timeline of when the bids for the project or when the more of a confirmed construction number will be available, we can certainly alter that timeline accordingly and have a sale or take bids earlier than September if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
I think my question is sort of along the lines, I think, with Mark. I mean, would there be benefit to us working to expedite this process to the greatest degree we can, or not necessarily?
Chuck, we can certainly, I can certainly visit with Amy and Amber next week and just to review kind of timelines and if there's something that we can do to accelerate something. Again, this tentative timeline is just kind of an example of what this timeline is. This is not certainly something that's set in stone. We can certainly revisit something about, I would say now you may say, well, what's the earliest, if we were ready to proceed, what's the earliest date we could have a bond sale to lock in interest rates? I would tell you it's probably going to be June. It'd probably be at your July meeting, actually. So if all of a sudden we said, you know what, we're comfortable with proceeding, we want to authorize the financing at our June meeting, and come back with a bond sale in July, that would probably be the soonest that we could proceed with that process.
Do you think there'd be significant benefit in doing so, or not necessarily? I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should. But if we should we?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think of that. There's kind of two things there. Number one is where are we in the process of really developing and being comfortable with what our construction budget is for the project. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some there's cash, right? So there's a cash component to the project and there's a financing component to the project. So really it's getting comfortable with, okay, we don't have actual construction bids yet, but we have budget estimates. Should we finance the project based on budget estimates, knowing that we're only going to finance X amount of the project and the balance is going to be coming from cash? If the bids come in less than what estimates were, you're going to be using less cash for it. If bids come in higher than the budget, you're going to be using more cash to cover the cost. So it may just be kind of weighing the pros and cons of that approach.
Sure.
But then from a market perspective, things are very good. I mean, we're getting a lot of bids on bonds. They're very good. I do think that will continue. I hope it does.
Sure.
And I wish my crystal ball worked a little bit better than it does. But I think either way, whether it's in July or August or September, I do feel really good about the long-term interest rates and whether it's at 2% or 2.5. Historically speaking, we're going to be in a very good position.
Fair enough. I appreciate it, Dustin.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, so you'll keep in touch with Amy and Amber and for any market changes or any anticipations that you may have. That'll work.
Yes, sir. Yep, we'll stay in touch, and then obviously we can review timeline as well and bring an update back to the governing body at some point as also.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
I would move to authorize the finance director to sign the financial service agreement with Piper Sandler for services associated with the insurance of the general obligations bond for the treatment plant phase 2 project for $40,000.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Christie. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, thanks, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
You too.
As well.
Manager's report.
Did we skip over one item on the agenda?
Did I?
I had down the budget study session meeting dates at the end. Did you guys have that on agenda?
I didn't have it on my sheet.
I didn't have it
We
either.
On mine.
were just going to do it under staff
But it's in
comment.
our packet.
Okay, that's under staff comments, but it's in the packet. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, Mark, are you ready for manager's report?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, just wanted to give kind of an update on where we were at Cloud County wise with respect to COVID-related testing. As of yesterday, we had 136 tests performed, 4 positives, and all have recovered. The last positive was on April 27th, which was 22 days ago. Currently have 4 pending tests. And last week, Brandy Breyer, Health Department Director, reported that there had been 35 tests performed last week. As of noon today, there's only been 5 tests reported. So the numbers that are being tested appear to be going down, which is a good thing. The reason I share this with you is because tomorrow our state legislature is convening for the last session, the last day of their session. And we just encourage anyone that has any feelings strongly one way or another about reopening or about the governor's executive orders, do contact Elaine and Susan. They've been very responsive and very good to work with. So I wanted you to be armed with that data in case they ask you those questions. Also, with the legislature convening tomorrow, there's a couple of bills that we anticipate they're going to be discussing. One of them is the House Bill 2118, which is their substitute for Senate Bill 294 and 295, and those have to do with the property tax, truth and taxation laws that I think the tax lid stays in place, but it's the one that requires an election if a municipality wants to spend even $1 more and requires a mailing to go out to all taxpayers to let them know kind of what's going on. The league has lobbied for the implementation of that to be moved from January 1st, 2021 to January 1st, 2022. And because of COVID, they want to give municipalities a little bit more time to understand how that's mainly going to affect them. There's a couple of things that do impact us there. And one of the significant ones is that they want the budget to be set with respect to property tax by July 15th. And that's very, very soon after we receive some estimates that would impact budget study session dates, things of that nature. So these things are pretty important to us. Also, a bill that they're going to be talking about is going to be the House Bill 2018, which is a substitute for Senate Bill 380. And that deals with micro wireless facilities in the right-of-way. It has not yet been debated by the House, but they're still pushing for action to be taken on it tomorrow. Again, we want some delay in that, and we're supporting the league's opposition to passage of that bill right now. So again, a couple more reasons to contact Elaine and Susan and let them know your standpoint on that. Commissioners, I did email you some information about that earlier this afternoon. Additionally, because the legislature is meeting tomorrow, we anticipate that they're going to discuss or take some action that impacts the Emergency Management Act, which may or may not impact some of the measures that the governor has put in place for us, including some of the mass gathering restrictions. We don't know any details. We don't know if anything's going to happen or at what time of day it will happen. But for those reasons, we wanted to wait and delay some decisions related to programming, such as the swimming pool, for example, in response to the governor's press conference that happened yesterday that implemented the modified phase 2. We want to wait to see what the legislature is going to do, what impact that may have on summer programming before making any changes to what we've already said or what we said last week was going to happen. That said, I do want to bring up a couple of things that have happened this week with respect to our pool and kind of in response to the governor's press conference yesterday, which enacted or made Executive Order 2034 effective on Friday, which is the modified phase 2. Specifically, what that did is that made the phase 2 limit of mass gatherings to 15 people. And while it allowed us to proceed with organized sports practices at the ball field, there was also some allusion to phase 3, the mass gathering limit being to 45. And so while we advanced movement to phases by 1 week sooner than had planned, it cut the limit of people that could gather in half. And the 45-person limit for phase 3 to open our pool, which is what we had said, really causes us some challenges because we typically have more than 45 people at one time at the pool. When that limit was 90, we weren't quite as concerned. Staff had some discussion today about how we could still find a way to say yes. How could we still open our pool if the limit is 45 patrons in the pool? We're not counting the staff, we're not counting the lifeguards, similar to the way restaurants are counting patrons, that their staff's not included in those numbers. And one of the solutions that we came up with, and that some other communities are doing to help manage their crowds, is the use of an online sign-up system for a certain time slot. And so one suggestion that we talked about was the use of Signup Genius. It's a freeware sign-up that you could use. Sign up in 2-hour time slots, which aligns with our current break times during our afternoon public swim. And people would come in, they'd swim for a couple hours, they would leave, we would have breaks taken by the staff, we would do some enhanced cleaning, and then the next group would come back in. Just kind of wanted you to be aware that those were under discussion. If things change with the legislature tomorrow, and that may change those mass gathering numbers or the timeline with respect to pool opening, we may not have to do that, but that's one solution that we're considering. Another things that have come up this week, we had ordered what we're calling the phase 3 equipment, the phase 3 pool improvement equipment, and that's the rock climbing wall and the zip line. And we were made aware this week that those deliveries have been delayed to quote unquote sometime in June. They were supposed to be here. The rock climbing wall was already supposed to be delivered, and the zip line we'd anticipated receiving before Memorial Weekend. Ron and his crews have already prepared the pool to receive those installations. We were just waiting on the delivery of those equipment. We don't have a delivery date on those. Additionally, earlier this week, we noticed some damage to the fish slide in the baby pool, and it's significant chunks out of the area where a kid would slide down the slide. And we don't want to cause injury to kids, and so we believe that it's very important to have those repairs made. So you will notice that the parks crew is going to be removing that slide out of the baby pool to take it back to Taylor Knox Auto Body for repairs. That was the business that had refurbished this used slide when we got it. It was used at that time. We anticipated there might be some additional repairs needed at some point in time. It's been in the water for a couple of years now. Definitely a good addition to the pool, but we want to get it repaired in a safe manner. At this point, we don't know for sure how long repairs will take. Preliminary estimates are telling us that it will need to stay out of the water for several weeks before we can reinstall it, and we don't know what time frame that will be with respect to pool opening. So those are some hurdles that we've encountered. Again, we don't quite feel defeated as of yet. We still want to work hard to find a way to say yes, but there's still a lot of moving parts to the swimming pool component. So we'll keep you posted as those keep progressing. Those are the things that I wanted to share with you this evening. Are there any questions?
Was the fish slide, was it due to vandalism or just use?
I don't think it was use.
Okay.
And they weren't, it wasn't damage that we noticed when we drained the pool last year. So it was sometime between draining of the pool last year and these past few weeks when we've been working to get things ready for opening.
How do the numbers, if we can't let more than 45 people in at a time, how does that affect the budget for the pool?
That's a really good question. I don't have a great answer for that. We could look at it from a standpoint that we will be saving some money with respect to chemicals and labor by not opening. We're already about 3.5-4 weeks delayed from where we normally open. But you still have to have there's a certain startup cost to go. We anticipate that there may be less people that are buying passes and punch cards and less people attending because of the delay. They may choose to get their own backyard pool, for example. There may be some people that are concerned about gathering in groups and attending. However, we also know that there's other area pools around, some of the larger ones like Manhattan and Salina, that have chosen to close their pools this year. Clyde doesn't have a pool this year. As the last I heard, Belleville and Beloit were still kind of up in the air, but Milton Bow and Glasgow are opening. So there's a chance that we may see more traffic because other pools in the area are closed. So we're really not sure at this point in time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
You know, Amy, I think a lot of the questions that I have about pool operations specifically, you know, I think we could spend a lot of time talking about tonight, but without knowing what the legislature is going to do tomorrow, I'm not sure that they'd be remarkably fruitful conversations. But I think what's really important, I guess, I could say this in my comments later, but trying to help Concordians know, I think we are trying to say yes. We are trying to figure out a way to streamline these processes, to give these recreational opportunities to our kids and for our community, and trying to be safe and prudent within restrictions, in a way that makes the most sense for everyone. So it's sticky, it's rough, things are changing all over. You said that the plan was moved up by a week, but it was after it was moved back by a week. And so,
That's right.
you know, I appreciate city staff doing what they can, but I'll probably have some questions for you tomorrow evening.
Not a problem. I'll be up till 10. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Anything else? Right, thank you. Staff reports?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. Chris Atkins here. Just want to give you a little update of something new I'm doing, especially this week and then probably going on this summer. With all the stoppages and uncertainty with baseball, now we're starting to start it again. But we come up with kind of a temporary plan of doing some Facebook challenges or giveaway contests. The one we're doing this week is the what's your favorite camping story with Memorial Day weekend coming up. Camping's usually one of the hottest weekends of the summer, Memorial Weekend. And just what's your favorite, and then trying to get people to post pictures of them out and doing the activities. And then we're going to give them away chamber bucks do a drawing at the end. Whoever shares it and likes the page and comments and pictures and all that stuff, we'll do a drawing of who entered and give away a couple $15 chamber buck prizes.
Is that something that we'd want to, the winners or the top three or whatever is deemed necessary? Is that something we want to put in the paper? Would that be good community news?
We could. It's just kind of all new. I know several other businesses have done it, which kind of piqued my interest and creativity on it, to kind of do our part to help the local businesses. That's why I kind of went to the Chamber of Bucks to kind of broaden their availability, but definitely publicizing the winners after that. And then moving forward with our other challenge, I got a list of about 8 different ones to possibly do, not only fun, but physical, kind of a wide range. So we can really take it any direction we want to.
Okay. That's good. Got to have some creativity during these times, or there's a lot of inactivity.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it, Chris.
Yep.
Any other staff reports?
Amber here to talk about budget meetings.
Any other staff reports?
Rude.
Oh, sorry, Amber.
Our plan to cut out the staff microphones wasn't as successful as we had hoped.
Go ahead, Amber.
So in the packet, I put a memo that suggested July 13th at 3 o'clock, July 15th after our regular meeting, and July 21st at 3 o'clock. Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Amber, I believe that I'm going to be out of town the Tuesday, the 21st of July.
Okay. Will you be in town the 22nd?
I should clarify the 10 days around that's kind of in the middle. We're going to be out of town the weekend prior through the weekend following. So that entire week, I will be out.
Okay. Usually that last meeting is basically looking at it finalized and we pretty much have it figured out before that. Would you be comfortable if it was approved without you there? I mean, or is there any way to Zoom you in?
Most likely. I don't anticipate that being a difficulty, and I don't know that I contribute significantly to budget discussions. I trust expert guidance. Yeah, we can figure out how to work that.
Okay, the first 2 meetings are going to be the meet. I mean, we'll basically figure out everything, and then the last one's pretty much I make sure all the changes are implemented, and then you approve it to be published. So, I mean,
if that's workable for everyone else, I'm comfortable with that. But I just wanted to
I just know we have conflicts in the week after that week.
Mhm.
And if you're gone that whole week, then I don't know what other time there would
No,
be.
if everyone else is agreeable to my remote participation, literally or figuratively, I'm fine with that.
Remotely speaking. Okay.
Wow.
Everybody else okay with that?
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Budget time it is. Hey, any other staff reports?
Nothing for me.
All right. I'm going to start with Christy tonight for mayor and commissioners, because usually by the time it gets to Christy, it's like everybody's said a lot of the stuff you wanted to say. So you get to go first.
I don't have anything tonight. It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow with the legislature, but beyond that, I think that our community is really pretty much pulled together, and I'm impressed with what everybody has done, and the support of the city staff as well.
Okay. Keaton?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to the city staff. I know as crazy as things are, as much as things have changed lately, it's hard to keep track of what's going on and when and how to plan for it when it's not really set in stone. So appreciate all you guys are doing. Keep it up and we'll get through it.
Yeah, it's and Amy and I met today, and there's really got an appreciation for what the staff, Amy and the staff, and has gone through in trying to hit the moving target, and it is a rapidly changing target, and the parameters change, and you can anticipate, but I think the anticipations usually end up have about a 60% chance of not being right. It's just really hard to get your finger on it. So anyway, thank you very much to the staff and Amy for weathering through this, and we've got a ways to go, but I think Concordia, I've talked to a lot of people, and there's people on both sides. People think we should wait before we open up, and a lot of people think we should have opened up a long time ago, and they should open up now. And I fall kind of in the middle there, and it is a serious virus that the economy needs to get going again. So hopefully, I see a lot of habits that people are doing now, and some things they don't have to do if they don't want to, but they do it. And so I think Concordia is ready for the comeback, and people can still do what they want when things come back. They can still wear masks. They can still carry their hand sanitizer, whatever they want to do. And I think a lot of people will. I think we've all gained some new habits. So anyway, looking forward to the comeback. Chuck?
On a light note, I'm really excited for Friday. I know my girls have had a real difficult time staring at the park and not being able to take advantage of the wonderful parks that we have here in Concordia, the playground equipment specifically. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them and their friends and cousins being able to play safely out there and having a good time. So I'm excited that we're able to move forward in that way. In a more, maybe more conflicted note, I think a lot of this has really helped reinforce in my mind the value of local rule and the importance that people closest to home have the best pulse on what's going on in their communities. I think everyone's in favor of local rule as long as they're the ones making the decisions. Our state doesn't want the federal, government to make their decisions, but they're not really real easy to relinquish that control to us lowly local governors, which I think is real frustrating for me. But along with that, I think, and I believe that everyone that's a part of this meeting, and I think that most people that are a part of their meetings in their communities really do work for the best interests of their community. We don't take these things lightly. We're not just sitting back waiting for somebody to tell us what we can do. And I would really invite anyone that thinks that we're simply a yes board or that we aren't really active in our conversations to step up. We have there's always the opportunity to take role in local government, And you know, my thought is if you're willing to complain about it, you better be willing to step up and do something about it. And if you're not willing to take that step, and you have the freedom to continue to complain, that's the God-given right that we have in this country. But you know, I think if you're not going to vote, if you're not going to step up to do something, really your voice doesn't hold a lot with me. But I know that local governance really does work hard to try to do the best it can for its people. You know, these aren't easy decisions. This isn't an easy time. I don't think any of us here take these decisions lightly or without significant thought. And it's hard to impress that upon somebody who doesn't want to hear that or doesn't want to believe it. But I know it to be true, and I know everyone here knows that to be true. So I appreciate all the hard work and dedication everyone involved puts into this week in and week out. That's
Thanks,
it.
Chuck. Marcia?
You left me until last this time.
There's still some meat on the bone.
I do want to thank again the EMS that we have, and those people work really hard. And I worked with them for a long time working at the hospital, and I know their jobs are not easy. Also wanted to thank the auditor again for explaining the audit, which helps explain the budget to people. And I wanted to specifically thank Chris for coming up with some ways to encourage the kids, and it's a crazy time. One day you can do this and the next day you can't do it, but maybe a day or two later they've changed again. So we'll get through it all, but appreciate the whole staff and not looking forward to a budget that's probably going to take a hit, but we'll get through it and do what we can. So I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcia. Okay, do I have do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Meeting adjourned.